Ghouls and creeps, serial killers, and slashers of all ages, be ready for a ton of guts, bloody chunks, and rotten heads are about to fall upon you.
What's up, ghouls and creeps? Welcome into Forgemaster Metal Reviews, the place where you get the most out of your metal.
In the spirit of Halloween month, we decided to round up our favorite gore-themed death metal albums in this list. What are some of your favorites and what do we miss? We probably missed a bunch. Drop them below.
Lace up your aprons and sharpen your cleavers, folks. It's time to round up our favorite gore-themed death metal records.
Mortician, Chainsaw, Dismemberment. Just look at that horrendously awful album cover reminiscent of VHS 90s and 80s horror movies. Fantastic album art for the band and why this is my first pick. Not quite the blood-soaked disaster piece of their debut Hacked Up for Barbecue was, but this seems slightly more fitting for the Halloween holiday. This album showcases 50 minutes of bashing, grinding death metal over 28 tracks. Aside from the disturbing lyrical content, breakneck pace, and utter heaviness, this album hosts a ton of horror movie samples that kind of help set up that maniacally depressive tone that's all over this record. Nothing groundbreaking in the riff department though, but a really fun album for horror fans and people who love diehard gore and brutal death metal.
Exhumed, Gore Metal, 1998 on Relapse Records. This record to me is equivalent in stature to Venom's black metal. It is an album that defines a subgenre. This is a really grotesque debut release from the American-based Exhumed, and it was one of the first records to pick up the baton where Carcass left it almost a decade earlier with Symphonies of Sickness. In my opinion, this is better than Carcass's early stuff. I love the melodic passages, and some of the grooves on this are just so raunchy. It's not a perfect album by any means. It's really lacking in the production department, and some of the technical sections are total slop fests, but this is the album that kicked off the second wave of gore-themed death metal, if you ask me.
Oh my god, it's so much.
Oh no, oh no, so much. Okay, I'm fine.
You're like Carrie.
Yeah.
Bloodbath, Nightmares Made Flesh. Bloodbath was born as a studio project from the members of Catatonia and Opeth. Peter Tagrin of Hypocrisy stepped in on this latest effort on vocals. Bloodbath was created out of the total die-hard love for death metal. So I honestly cannot characterize this band as a supergroup, although technically it is, but supergroup has this like tinge of badness around it, and Bloodbath doesn't fucking have that. The cool thing about this record though is it would have been very easy to write them off when Ackerfeld left the band, but the band ended up putting out a career-defining death metal album with arguably one of the biggest fucking death metal tracks of all time, which is Eaten. I mean, that's like an anthem for gore-themed death metal, so Nightmares Made Flesh, fantastic album.
Once again with this pick, the apprentice becomes the master. Impaled's Mondo Medicale, 2002, and Death Vomit Records. This is a sophomore record that not only pays homage to, it completely dissects its influences and tosses their guts in the hazardous waste bin. This is a genre-defining record. It balances the gross guitar tones in a trifecta of distinctly grotesque vocal lyrics with neck-breaking grooves and absolutely filthy riffs. The band totally leans into the medical malpractice, with their titles being listed as general malpractitioner, waste mismanagement, immoral surgeon, and intoxicologist. The lyrics read like fucking medical research papers written by Dr. Frankenstein himself. If you don't bang your head to this record, I think you're gonna need to get your ears checked. I wouldn't recommend going to Impaled for that though.
Carcass, Symphonies of Sickness. Absolutely disgusting and horrendous looking album art. It's actually really hard to look at that. It seems to me that when it comes to early death metal and the progenitors of the style, Carcass were among the most vicious sounding and brutal of the lot. Especially with this album though. It's Hall of Fame material with the dank death metal crypts with those thick guitar tones, brilliant guitar melodies, and slamming drum performances throughout the entire record. I think the highlight for me though is the vocal performances here though between Jeff Walker and Bill Steer. This album is just simply death metal history in the gore department, and it's absolutely influential on the future of the genre.
Death's Scream Bloody Gore 1987 Combat Records. This is the OG GORE album, folks. I can safely say that without this album, I don't think we'd be talking about any of the other albums on this list at the level of extremity of which they currently are anyway. Horror movie worshipping American teenagers playing some of the grossest, most macabre music of its time. This is totally cutting edge, genre defying stuff. Really, if you ask me, we're talking about waves of gore themed death metal. This is the first wave of gore themed death metal right here. For more of our thoughts on death, you gonna want to check out. Dude, like the shit's like getting in my eye and I can't pay attention.
I was like, the hills have eyes.
Go check out our discography ranking. For more of our thoughts on death, you should check out our discography ranking of the band, which we did with Matt Zappa. Awesome episode, and we talk a lot about death and a lot about Scream Bloody Gore.
Repulsion, Horrified. In the late 80s, various circles of hardcore punk were undergoing extensive changes to their sound that would ultimately lead to the birth of the grindcore genre. Repulsion, who began as a thrash death outfit called Genocide, would set their sights on a much faster paced style of music that many other bands were transitioning to, but wanted to leave their own mark on the sound. Now, among the pioneers of grindcore, Napalm Death is by far the most cited and most successful of the bunch. That being said, you won't find many grindcore fanatics that would argue that Horrified was just as important, if not more so, than other grindcore releases of that time.
Autopsy's Severed Survival 1989 on Peaceville Records, an absolute classic. I've been blessed with all the classics here today. Coming off the heels of Death, Chris Rayford and Autopsy intentionally made something very sinister and extreme. The original album artwork with the zombie surgeons is just such a fucking classic, terrifying cover. You know what, when you pop this album in, you are about to get cut open and eaten. There's no shortage of sick riffs and spine-ripping brutality on this. This is yet another debut on this list that completely changed the death metal landscape.
Behold the genre-defining death metal classic driven by insanity, brutality, and gore, Cannibal Corpse Eaten Back to Life. Part of the holy grail of death metal albums. Like Death's Scream Bloody Gore and Morbid Angel's Altars of Madness, Cannibal Corpse hit the bloody nails in the skull of brutal and relentless death metal with this record. Sure, you could take your pick out of many Cannibal Corpse album artworks. In fact, we should do a Cannibal Corpse gory album art ranking sometime. Comment below, do you guys want to see that? But Eaten Back to Life is just ridiculous. I mean, look at the corpse eating itself with the gore strewn all over the album cover. It's just obscene. It's disgusting. It's amazing. The first real extreme and gory death metal record due to its gruesome lyrical content. So that's why Eaten Back to Life takes this slot.
So friends, what were your favorite gore-themed albums? Be sure to leave some links down below and some comments, and if you haven't yet, fucking murder that like button and subscribe if you're new.
Go with the gods, Forgemasters, steer clear of the basement, and remember,
they're coming to get you, Barbara.
See you guys next time.